Okay, got our tube together, our tube made, and we're printed out onto our address label. Now we got to get the sticker out to put on the tube. I just use a scalpel and some Superman glasses and a metal straight edge, and you just line it up. And then cut it with your scalpel. And there's your label. Okay, now we want to get this label on this tube. And I've already pre-made the tube for the handgun click pen. So when we get the kit, it'll come with a tube, but I've already got this made. And we're going to put it in silicone and get it all turned and get it ready, so when the kit comes, boom, we can just assemble the pen. So I painted it white. I find that works better when you stick the label over it. The brass tubes, if you don't paint it first, the brass tubes tend to, I don't want to say bleed through, but when you put the silicone on it, you know, this is going to stick to the tube, and when you submerge it in the silicone or pour the silicone over it, it just kind of seems like, you know, it makes the label wet or whatever. It soaks through, and you can almost kind of, I don't want to say see the brass tube, but you can almost kind of see this like brassy kind of shade to your label. Now if that's what you want, you're cool, you're good, no sweat. But I've noticed that doesn't happen if you paint the tube white. So let's get this stuck together. Okay, the biggest trick is getting the label off the sticky back, and then you just square it up to your tube. Make sure it's square. I usually do it in gloves, just because if you've got dirty fingers or sweaty hands, oily fingers, you can smudge your picture. It doesn't look square. Once you're sure you're pretty much going to roll all the way around and not deviate from your tube, then I just lay it down and roll it out. And then along the seam, I use like the back of my fingernail to kind of schmooze it out a little bit. Plus you want to make sure you've got a good seal so you don't get any air bubbles in it. And we'll go through the air bubbles when we pour the acrylic. Alright, there's our tube. So let's get this poured in acrylic. Alright, now that we've got our pictures, our images, our labels stuck to our blanks, I'm doing one of Batman too. Anyway, we've got our tubes done. Now we're going to grab our clear silicone, put it in our Dixie cup, mix in our hardener, stir it up, and then we're going to pour it into our little P-Town Subby silicone mold that's for the Sierra series. So one's going to be a Gatsby, the Batman one's going to be a Gatsby, and then this semi-auto handgun mock-up one Also fits in the same size tube. So then we got to put your little rubber corks in each side of your tube and make sure they're really snug, because this is where your air bubbles come in. If you don't have a nice snug fit, you're going to get air bubbles escaping out of your tube while it's in the silicone, and you'll get bubbles in your acrylic. And if you mix it up nice and gentle and you pour it nice and gentle, you're not really going to get any bubbles in it, and as it warms up, the bubbles come to the top anyway. So then when you turn it all down and you're just a fraction off your tube, you don't have any bubbles. So let's get this silicone poured, and we'll go from there. Alrighty, we've got our Silmar 41 clear acrylic. Got just a regular 3-ounce 60 glass. I always put a line on them, and that's my 2 ounces. And that's usually what go in a PVC pipe of about 5 inches, 6 inches. Or it also fills each compartment in the P-subby, the P-town subby. So we're going to pour in about 2 ounces. Mix in our 12 drops of hardener. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Stir it up gently. Gently. Don't be whipping it. You're not making butter. Plus you don't get as many air bubbles if you do it nice and easy. Just stir it up. Okay. Well, we let the acrylic kind of come to temperature and bubbles drift out. We're going to let that set for a second and get back to our tubes. Here's one. Here's the other one. They go in the P-town subby silicone molds. Highly recommend. Highly recommended. They pop right out when you're done. You've got the little rubber cork ends. Go through the holes and then into your tube. So I usually put one in first. I generally have the picture I want from the front, you know, the face of the pen, the picture I want out of the front of the pen. I usually do that up, but it really doesn't matter because once you turn it, it's all moot. But I like to be able to look at it while it's curing. So you put that in nice and snug, push your cork into your tube, into your mold, and then we do the same thing in the other side, and ensure that it goes into the tube. Obviously this all makes sense. And this is probably the hardest part, is making sure this tube is seated nice and firm so you don't get air bubbles. I'll give it a little jig dance here. I usually push in on these ends while I pull out on the edges. And then the mold itself, wanting to kind of spring back into shape, holds those in. Okay, so we've got the cowboys in. Then we're going to do the Batman one. Put my face up. Bring the tube in there. Okay. Now we take our acrylic and gently pour it in. Usually just pour off into one side and then let it kind of come to level. Nice and gentle, no bubbles. And then that 2 ounces will give you almost exactly 2 perfect casts. Okay, and then as mentioned before, once we turn our acrylics, I always put it under, you know, just a classic little, you know, shop light, construction light, scene light, whatever, bench top construction light. Anyway, and that throws just enough heat to help these set up. I shouldn't say help them set up. They'll set up just fine with just your hardener, your two-stage, pour in your acrylic, pour in the hardener, you mix them up. It creates heat and it makes them hard. Well, if you set it kind of next to a warm environment, for those old enough might remember the old easy bake ovens where it just had a little plastic oven with a light bulb in it, and you mixed up your your brownie mix and put it under the light and it cooked, right? It baked. This is kind of the same idea. Let's see if I can get a good close-up. And I put it on this Lazy Susan tray so I can just turn it in the light. Let it warm up. And turn it a little bit, let it warm up. But anyway, let's see if we can get a picture of, see if we can get a good close-up here. Adjust the focus. I don't know if I can get really any better than that. But anyway, that's what your blanks look like. Okay, I don't know if they've got their own site or not. I think he's on eBay. And they just pop right out. And then the little handles on your little cork things assist in just popping them out. Oh, fail. That's a fail on the Batman one. And there's our blank. Okay, and there's our blank for the semi-auto pistol mock-up. And we'll get this on the lathe and get it going.